right, ladies and gentlemen, what do you say we get started, shall we? That's right, folks. Without further ado, it's time. I gotta turn that down again. Jeez. That's just, this thing sometimes gets me. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for one and only, the world famous Rich Wilson Show. That's right. Coming to you live from a bunker deep below the earth. Yeah, it's time.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world famous Rich Wilson Show.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the world famous Rich Wilson Show. I'm Rich Wilson, and you're not. That's right, folks. Having myself a cup of my coffee today, and what an interesting weekend. Got to take the roof nest and the old lady out camping this weekend at Tanglewood Forest. Was a lot of fun. Everybody should go out there. If you ever find yourself in that section of Texas, you ought to go out there and see if you can go camping out there. It's a fun time. It's a great place. Absolutely amazing place to go. I recommend it to anybody. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to talk about tonight is a pair of tweets that seems to have made the social media buzz, and also even more talk about that one tweet, even other tweets that are spawning off of this one that are horrifically wrong. Horrifically wrong. Okay? And that's what we're going to discuss tonight. Okay? People are like, oh, we're going to talk about tweets. Ugh. Well, speaking of tweets, by the way, Twitter, the shareholders of Twitter did go ahead and they made the agreement to let Elon Musk buy Twitter. Now, understand that it's going to take a little bit of time before that goes through. But it's still going to be a thing. And what happened is the shareholders, the individual shareholders should go through investment firms. When they were being offered, because Musk was offering more money than what those shares were worth, of course, the shareholders were like, well, we need to sell. And the reason why we need to sell is because that's more money than we have, which means we make a profit out of this, and that's what you're doing. Well, the investment firms were trying to block this, and they were doing everything they could. And unfortunately for them, the shareholders were getting to them and saying, no, we want this. So it's a $44 billion deal. That's the total. Elon Musk says that once it's done, then they're going to go through and start eliminating some of these moderation deals that they've got, and actually put in a place for reviewing of tweets where it's not an algorithm that goes through and cycles these out and can't be pre-programmed to silence certain tweets. So so $44 billion, which is actually slightly less than the initial. I believe the initial agreement was like $46 billion. So that's down a little bit, but it's still, the offer is still at, let's see here. It's still going to be over $51 a share. So it's still going to be quite substantial for individuals that are that have shares in this. So it is, like I said, it's quite substantial. So there you go. So let's talk about the first tweet that popped up, and it does involve Elon Musk. Now, this one popped up, and what it says, ending homelessness is cheaper than buying Twitter. That's incorrect. Okay, that is badly incorrect. There's been a bunch of other tweets that have popped up. Let's see if There's another one on my. There was another one I just saw that popped up on my Twitter feed. Well, what was it? Oh yeah, when Elon Musk told the UN that if when you give me a number on ending world hunger, and I'll give you the money. And they gave him a number of $6 billion. However, Elon Musk also stated, you've got to tell me how and where you're going to spend that money that I give you, which they refused to do. But everybody's sitting there saying the guy refused to end world hunger. He could end homelessness in America. Well, and here's the source, one of the sources that's popping up for this. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, it would cost $20 billion to end homelessness in the United States. It's a big number, but let's put it in perspective. Americans spend $19 billion a year on unplugged appliances. Americans spend more than $35 billion a year on gym memberships. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out exactly then where the goalpost is moving on this. And here's the reason why I want to know this. Because the money, this $20 billion, and actually experts say to actually take every homeless person and put them in housing, is actually around 30 to 35 billion. So that number's not even correct. So remember, Elon Musk spent $44 billion on Twitter. Okay, so let's keep that number in. Okay, so 30 million to put homeless people in homes. But that doesn't end homelessness. Zion Brand just realized the hypocrisy of the Dems on Disney. They say the rich should pay their fair share, but it's okay for Disney or not. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So 30 billion from 44, that's $14 billion. Okay. Putting somebody in a home is one thing, but that doesn't solve the problem. Now we got to feed them. Okay. So we got to feed them. So we'll just and we could just do the math together, right? Let me see if I can get an actual statistic of what the homeless is. Let's see if we can get a number. Let's see. Okay, so the number of homeless in the United States is estimated to be 552,830. Okay, so that's 55283. And we need to now multiply that. Let's say the average person per day to feed, let's just say $30. Let's just say $30. Okay. Actually, I need to make that 0.00. Okay. And now we're going to times that by 30 days in a month. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, dot, 1, 2, 3, dot. So $500 million a month to feed the homeless. Those homeless people will cost $500 million a month. $497,547. Okay. At $30 a day, that's $10 per meal. Okay. I understand that, Zion, but I'm just saying at $10 a meal, that's $30 a day. That is roughly $500,000. Okay, so $500,000 out of the $14 billion, or $500 million out of $14 billion, we now have $13.5 billion. Medical care, right? Because we're going to have to administer medical care to the homeless people once we give them a home. Otherwise, we're not getting anywhere, right? So let's do the numbers again. So what we're looking at per person on average, the average healthy person still, we'll just look at the running insurance rate, $600 a month, right? The average insurance cost is $600 a month. So let's just go with the average cost at times 600. We're now at 331 million plus the other one, give or take. We're now looking at $1 billion. We're looking at a total of $1 billion. So we're down to $13 billion. That's just for 1 month. I'm only doing 1 month. Now let's look at psychological evaluations. Half of that number is going to be psychological. Is going to be, actually, no, it's going to be more than that. It's going to be 3/4. So we're going to do 3/4 of that number just to be safe. Right? So let's do 3/4. It won't let me paste it. And I realize this is slow. And it's not letting me type it in. 552,830 divided by 123. That's $2 billion. Actually, sorry, $1,948,000,000 in change. Okay. So now we've cut it down. We're down roughly to $11 billion. And this is still 1 month. Okay, that's 1 month. Now we're going to talk about education, because a lot of these homeless people no longer have the educational skills to perform in the workplace. Oh, hold on, time out. Drug rehabilitation. Drug rehabilitation. To give drug rehabilitation to every homeless person, there's actually a statistic already for this. I don't even have to do the numbers. The drug rehabilitation in the United States to administer to to the homeless people that are currently on drugs right now is $8 billion. Okay? For 1 month. It's $8 billion in cost. We're down to $3 billion. Okay? Now let's talk about education to put people back into the workforce. You're now talking about $2.5 million. Okay? So all in all, and we haven't even gotten into clothing yet. Housing, food, clothing, education, base health care, special health care as mental health, addiction, rehabilitation care, transportation, getting it done. So there's a college that actually did this research, did a research study on it. To take every single homeless person off the street, give them food, give them clothes, give them health care, give them psychological care, give them all the care it needs per month. $43 billion, okay, per month. Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion. That's purchased outright. Twitter, okay? That's not $44 billion a month. That's $44 billion once, and he owns Twitter. $43 billion a month to take care of the homeless people in the United States. Now, that number will significantly drop because you gave them houses. But you have to educate them on how to take care of their houses. You have to give them the psychiatric, the drugs, the drug addiction. You have to rehabilitation, both mental, physical, and educational. All of these different things. After you put them in homes, it's still going to cost you $18 billion a month to maintain that for up to 1 year, because the average is 1 year to 2 years to get them off of the cycle of homelessness and back to a system of being in the workforce and taking care of themselves. 2 years. You're looking at close to $1 trillion ends the homelessness cycle for the 500,000+ people that are homeless. $1 trillion. That's when the homelessness ends. It's not when we put them into houses, which is what this tweet is saying. This tweet says if we put you in a house, that ends homelessness. For how long? Is that a permanent solution, or is that we're going to put you in a house? We know probably within a month you're going to be by the time month's over. Yes, it's going to be out on the street again. Now, what do? You're talking about ending homelessness. Then what do you do about the people who choose to be homeless? Because yes, there is people who choose to be homeless. I have met them myself. There's some right there in ATX, Austin, Texas, that I have met that choose to be homeless. What do you do about them? Because then the homelessness doesn't end. So then you can't actually end homelessness. Not saying we shouldn't do anything, but here's another thing. Why is it Elon Musk? Why is it only Elon Musk that could end homelessness? What about Bill Gates? Okay. What about him? Oh, you want one of these shirts too? No, go to the richwilsonshow.com. It's right there. They're for sale. And not only just t-shirts, we got hoodies and other things too if you want one of these. But seriously, what about nobody's talking about Jeff Bezos? Nobody's nobody's talking about that. So you can buy a massive high value company or pay for homeless care for a month. Guess the better return on the investment for a businessman. That's the other thing you got to realize. Elon Musk did not make his money by investing in lost causes or social agendas. Okay? And it's really easy for people out there who don't have the kind of money that Elon Musk has to say this is how Elon Musk should spend his money. It's real easy if you're dead broke to tell a man how he should spend his billions. It's simple. But here's the thing. If Elon Musk took every dime he has and just constantly put it into homelessness, guess what he's not going to be able to do? He's not going to be able to pay for our space exploration. He's not going to be able to continue to promote and do new research into even cleaner cars because, folks, all these electric cars is not clean. They keep saying electric cars is the way to a cleaner environment. It's not. We don't have the electrical infrastructure to handle everybody going to electric. And let me tell you something. These batteries, the materials they have to mine in order to make the batteries is extremely toxic to the environment in order to pull it out of the ground. And there's not that much of it on Earth. So he won't be able to invest money into making even more efficient and better electric automobiles. There's the other thing. 75 Lurch said, and he might want to pay his people. Because if he takes every bit of his value, because understand that the man didn't have $44 billion on hand. He is worth a shit ton of money. He's worth more than the $44 billion, but his money is allocated into his companies. His value is in the assets of his companies and his reinvestments. Okay, so he had to get loans. He had to get financial backing based on his values to get that money. It's not like he suddenly wrote a check for $44 billion. It's not that simple. But people who don't have this kind of setup in their life thinks it is. They think it is. Here's another thing. Why aren't we screaming? Why aren't we talking about, why didn't Black Lives Matter, instead of taking the $290 million that it spent on mansions, why didn't they invest that back into ending black homelessness? Because like one mansion, everybody's one of the mansions they bought, it went to housing the people that were supporting the Black Lives Matter movement in their protests. Actually, no, it didn't. That's what spawned the investigation to find out that they were committing fraud. So why aren't we screaming about that? Electric cars. Let me catch up on you guys. So you can buy a massive. Okay, we caught that one. There's a reason this is spread across to hundreds of charities. This should be hundreds of elites to do it. How about all the company gets that insider trades? He might as well, electric cars just trade one set of problems for another. They probably invested in rare minerals and battery makers. That's why they push it. Not that it's environmental friendly, and it's not. Here's another thing. Why isn't anybody screaming at Nancy Pelosi? Take her hundreds of millions of dollars that she has and take care of just the homeless problem in her district. Why doesn't she take care of the homeless, take her money and invest it into the homeless problem in just her district alone? Hell, just the state she represents. She represents the state of California. Why isn't her and her husband taking their hundreds of million dollars and doing that? Why aren't you screaming about that? Because the problem is not we need to go after a rich man that needs to pay his fair share, which fair share is a bullshit term. There is no such thing. Okay? But what it is we're going to go after somebody who's now going to change our safe atmosphere platform of Twitter where we can silence anybody we want. And he's decided he's going to change that. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick all these social things that he could do instead and try to paint him as an evil person instead of focusing on, well, if you're going to pick on one, pick on them all. Disney. Has anybody looked at the profit margins that Disney as a corporation pulls every single year? Why isn't anybody going after, oh, wait a minute, Ron DeSantis finally decided that they have to pay for what they got? Because they haven't been. People are like, oh, I've seen the defense posts that have been coming up saying, oh, well, Disney actually pays this. Actually, still, Disney's been getting out of over $200 million a year in taxes. They have been. So don't sit there and believe that bullshit either. Zion Brand said it's another fake argument because they're losing. They keep moving their goalposts. Exactly. That's what it is. This has nothing to do, and I have been over on Facebook watching the chat over there. Okay. It's not going. But that's all this is. It's bullshit because they want to sit there and say that, oh, it's this, when it's actually they're all scared to death that people of opposing opinions will be able to get on Twitter without getting banned. Everybody's like, oh, this means Donald Trump will be back on Twitter. Donald Trump said yesterday he's not going back to Twitter, period. It doesn't matter who owns it. Okay? He's not going back to it. A lot of people said it doesn't matter if Elon Musk cleans up all the problems that were there before. They're not going back. Okay? They're just not. Period. They're done with it. A lot of people are done with most of your major social medias because they're tired of these algorithms and all these problems that they have. They're tired of it. And I can't say that I blame them. But don't sit there and say that one person needs to pay for all this. No. If every person in the United States of America, let's just take that. Let's just do that real quick. Let's do this thought process, right? Okay, let's look up the population. I know it's going to sound muffled. Population of the United States of America, right? 329.5 million. Okay? Let's do this. Let me make sure I got my zeros right. That's one set. another set. So if every person in the United States of America gave $10 a month to end homelessness, just $10 a month, that's $3,299,000,000, right? You times that by 12. Oh my God. There's the number for taking care of, to getting homeless people out of homelessness, and then 1 month of taking care of people. 1 month. 330 million, about 75 million are kids, and another 30 to 40 million are elderly on fixed incomes. Why don't people who claim to be for everyone and everybody should be for everyone give up their shit and good for all? When people start doing that, then complain. $39 billion if every single person in the United States, but that's also including homeless people. But if everybody surrendered $10 a month, well, hell, we could solve the problem. Everybody. And you know what? That's fair across the board. And that's where that whole argument about fair share, because the people who make under a certain amount are going to say, well, I shouldn't give $10, but if this guy's giving $10 and he's a millionaire, he should give $100 for my 10. Well, then that's not a fair share anymore. And then they tell you that's not how fair shares work. Fair shares are supposed to be a percentage based on what you have. Well, that's not fair. Fair would be equal across the board. But if you really think about it, $39 billion per year. Take care of the homeless problem. But again, like I said, you would get told no, because that isn't fair. You know, because the wealthy people are paying the same $10 that the poor people are paying, and that's not fair. I don't know what people's, and this is why I tell you the fair share argument is bullshit. And here's the reason why I tell you the fair share is bullshit. Because the moment you say, like, I forever have been behind a flat tax rate across the board. Everybody pays 20%. Zion said flat tax of 1%. William Squire says life ain't fair. You pay taxes, then you die. Well, that's the fair part. We all pay taxes. We all die. Okay. Zion said flat tax of 1%. I say 20. Well, let's say just 10. Let's go 10%. 10% across the board. Everybody pays 10%. No deductions, no credits. You just pay 10%. If you make $1, you pay 10 cents. If you make $100, you pay $10. Okay. You see that? You make $1 billion. You see, it doesn't. Either way you look at it, the wealthiest still pay more than you, but they pay the same percentage as you. Right now, the wealthy still pay a higher percentage than the lower income. Then people complain, well, they get all these tax deductions. Well, first of all, if you make $1 billion goddamn dollars, you can afford somebody to figure out how to use the tax code system to get your write-offs to pay to knock that down. Okay, everybody does it, even Bernie Sanders. Let me say that again for the socialists in the back who keep screaming this fair share bullshit, and their patron saint is Bernie Sanders. Even Bernie Sanders takes advantage of tax loopholes to pay less in taxes. He admitted to it. Zion Brim, but would you need a charity to run it? Not the government, because their overhead is insane. Efficiency and effectiveness is garbage. Costs more to run it than the service delivered. You're not wrong. You'd have to find somebody to run it. If we're gonna do this, where we take care of the homeless, then we're gonna have to find somebody to organize it. Because damn sure, I'm not gonna let the government design this. I mean, we're talking about the same group of people that everything that they start is an absolute failure. You can't, other than the IRS, name a government agency that makes money. You can't. Name a government program that makes money. You can't. All of them cost money, and a lot of it. So why would we let an organization who can't seem to put together anything that makes money run a charity to take care of people. Make them all pay. Start off with the representative. Stop the social experiment and actually have them put their money where their mouth is. And you know what? If I was sitting in Congress right now and somebody's like, we got to do something about the homelessness. Okay. So how much money are you putting forward? Because you got way more than I do. You tell me what you're putting up. I'll try to meet you somewhere with what I can afford. Well, oh no, we're going to raise taxes on wealthy people. That means you too, right? Because you're wealthy. Well, oh no. I don't have to pay. That's what you get. See, everybody keeps talking about, oh, well, you know, Congress, anybody above this certain amount is going to pay higher taxes, except Congress, who makes more than those amounts. Do you ever notice their magic numbers? Nobody above $400,000 will pay more in taxes, because you have some members of Congress that are making pretty goddamn close to that, like the Speaker of the House, the President of the United States. They're not going to cut their own noses off. Okay? They're not. And they make sure they write exemptions in the bill that prohibits them from getting hit by the income gains they get on their tax investments. Okay? So they're not going to pay anything. The people that are the biggest hypocrites in the world are the people that are not even willing to sacrifice themselves. And then you get dumb shit like this on Twitter where people are sending it all. It's actually that way. You get where they're willing to say all this. That's what I said. 10% straight tax, no exemptions, no returns, just 10%. But then, like I said, you get idiots who post this up, 16.1 thousand retweets, over 110,000 likes. That's stupid. And not to count how many times it's been shared on other shit. Cyber, hell yeah, ever seen Congress pass a pay cut or a tax on themselves? How about they won't pass insider trading restrictions on themselves? They won't. Because here's what they did. You know how they said before, oh, well, we'll pass insider trader things where members of Congress can't trade? When they started talking about it, guess what the Pelosi household did? Nancy Pelosi's name was on a lot of property investments. Her and her husband are real big into real estate. Real big. Guess what happened when they started discussing this? What you didn't realize is the investment firm that her and her husband go through transferred every single investment that Nancy Pelosi has in her name over to her husband. Same thing happened with a couple other congressmen and women. Things got transferred to the spouse because the rules say they can't, but it doesn't say their spouse can. See, they're the ones that get up there and go, well, we'll do this. It doesn't actually affect them. It's theater to make you think they're doing the right thing. They're not. I would tell you right now, if I ran for Congress, I'd sell every single share I got. Every single share, I would dump it off. I wouldn't get it my significant other. I would dump every single one of my shares. Why? Because I'm not going to sit there and be able to start making money off of shit like that, because the common everyday man doesn't have the same chance. And if I'm going to be fair about it, if I'm going to be transparent about it, then that's the only way I could do it. And that would be the kind of thing that I would run on. I would let you know, yes, as soon as I'm elected, I sell all of my shares. I will have no investment. None. Because it's not right. Because I'll know in advance the bill is coming forth that's going to affect the cost of something, which a lot of them do. Ted Cruz invested a whole bunch of money into Bitcoin. First, they said, at first the government started talking about regulating Bitcoin, and the value of Bitcoin tanked. Well, it didn't tank. It dropped significantly. Then Ted Cruz goes out, invests a whole bunch of money into Bitcoin, then proposes a bill be put before the floor to make Bitcoin an acceptable electronic currency in the U.S. government. All of a sudden, Bitcoin's prices went through the roof. That's insider trading. Technically, by law, it's not, but but if you look at the definition under a technicality, it is. But it's not prosecutable. People who thumbs up that are just virtue signaling. Every time I see such crap, it tells me who to stay away from and deport to Wokifornia. If we can split them out of this country. Well, and I tell you, and Pelosi's done it, AOC's done it, a lot of companies done it. I did a show way back when, where we talked about. We did a show where we talked about the people in Congress and where they're investing in, and what they're investing in, and how their decisions are affecting those. 75 Lurch, if you're making $1 billion, you're investing $1 billion in this country's infrastructure, and yes, you pay taxes. You are. If you make $1 billion in a corporation, how much of that money do you think is actually going back into the system? Quite a damn bit, because you didn't put $1 billion in your pocket. It's just like Bezos. Everybody bitch about Bezos and his company making what it makes. Oh, well, last year, Amazon made, $19 billion. That doesn't mean Jeff Bezos has $19 billion. That means the company made $19 billion, but they still got to pay people. They still got to pay for improvements. They got to pay for this. They got to pay for that. Just because the company made that. Yeah, people don't understand the difference between what a company makes at the end of the year versus what what is the difference between gross and actual profit. People will tell you that the $19 billion that Amazon made is actual profit. That is a lie. It is not. That is the gross margin that the company actually made. Then you look at all their cost of operations. You look at the cost of reinvestments. You look at the cost of everything else, and you realize the company actually only probably made still a good chunk of money, probably about around between $1 billion to $850 million total after everything's paid off. That's actual pure profit, which the shareholders get a stake of that. The shareholders get a stake, and then the rest of it is used in reinvestment. Now, I do believe they actually made a little bit more on all those numbers. This was at one point. But I'm just trying to break this down. It's not as simple as everybody makes it sound out there, and they're bullshit. The president caps out at $400,000. And do you notice how they always say the taxes won't affect anybody that makes $400,000 or less? Isn't that an interesting number? All right, so I want to move on from this because talking about business and taxes and all of that, it can get rather dry. I could talk to you about taxes and incomes and all this other shit till the cows come home, and it just gets dry. Profit in a real company is largely reinvested back into the company, from bonuses to paying debt to new equipment and expansion. Well, I can tell you one thing that Amazon's expanding. We're getting a distribution center right here in our own town. A lot of people are going to get put to work. Hell, I'm probably going to end up working for them. I mean, I got to find a way to pay my new teeth I'm getting off, so I'm probably going to end up working for Amazon. Everybody else I know has worked for them, so why not? Let's talk about something else. I want to talk to you about somebody that was very important in the history of this country. That, my friends, is Jackie Robinson. Now, why is Jackie Robinson important? Well, did you know that on April 15th we celebrated 75 years of breaking the barrier? The barrier is that Major League Baseball was segregated. Up to that point, in 1947, no black person could play Major League Baseball. None. I believe it was 1947. I could be a little off on that date. Yeah, no, it was. Broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball in 1947 by becoming the first African-American player. So 1947, yep, 75 years ago. Okay. The problem is there's a tweet going around about Jackie Robinson. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Jack Roosevelt Robinson was born in Cairo, Georgia in 1919 to a family of sharecroppers. His mother, Mally Robinson, single-handedly raised Jackie and her 4 other children. They were the only black family on their block, and the prejudice they encountered only strengthened their bond. From this humble beginning would grow the first baseball player to break Major League Baseball's color barrier that had segregated the sport for more than 50 years. Okay. That's Jackie Robinson. A fairly decent baseball player. 29 stolen bases. 19 times he stole a home. 137 home runs, 734 RBIs. Now, those numbers were great in those days. Today, that's a little over average, except for the stole home part. Okay. He was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1962. His first year of eligibility, he was the first Major League Baseball player to be inducted that did not have a single vote against him. He's also received the NAACP's prestigious Springham Medal. But all these numbers are here. Now, understand that the man played in the Negro League in the United States for a while. And finally, one day, the right people came together and said, not letting a man like this play Major League Baseball is a problem. And so they brought him in. Now, was it difficult for Jackie to be a professional baseball player in Major League Baseball, which had been all white for 50 plus years? Yes, it was. He had to deal with extreme adversity in the beginning. There was a lot of racism in baseball at that time still, and he had to deal with it throughout his career, but it opened up the door for many, many more black athletes to be able to play Major League Baseball. In fact, it opened the door for black athletes to be able to play in other sports. It was a rough time for him, but he made it through. And because of him being the first, other black athletes were able to play in sports alongside white athletes. Before too long, Mexican Americans come through. Guys, yeah, Vlad is junk. You're absolutely junk. Don't get on here and throw that bullshit on here. So I don't know. Some of y'all are on YouTube. I don't know if you see the multi-stream chat or not, but if anybody pops any links up on this on my chat line, don't click on them. So anyway, that's Jackie Robinson. Now let's talk about why we're talking about Jackie Robinson, except celebrating 75 years. So Senator Tom Cotton and multiple other senators had posted these things, congressmen and other influential people in the United States. 75 years ago, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier as the first African-American Major League Baseball player. Today, we honor him and his lasting legacy. One of the top response to this, and this has gotten over 1 million likes on it. Should students learn why he wasn't allowed to play? Well, let's put on our critical thinking caps, folks. Because we use critical thinking here. 75 years ago, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier as the first African-American Major League Baseball player. That statement alone tells you that up until Jackie Robinson played Major League Baseball, it was segregated. Major League Baseball was a white-only league. It tells you that in that statement. Because racism was alive and rampant in the major leagues, in all sporting events. In fact, when Jackie Robinson in 1947 became a part of Major League Baseball, racism was alive and well. So it tells you all of this by using critical thinking. Okay, and that's all it takes. It doesn't take you. You don't need to be taught in school how the whole world is racist, how the whole world is still racist, because black athletes play sports. All major sports, black athletes play in them. In fact, one of the big conversations about what used to be a predominantly white organization, and some people will say Southern racist organization, NASCAR, which is not, but NASCAR, they were talking about how Bubba Wallace last year won. In fact, the last 3 flags to fall at Talladega, Bubba Wallace had won them all. Had won them all 3 up to that point. Okay, Bubba Wallace is a black man that's a NASCAR driver. Now, we all probably heard about Bubba Wallace last year. We had the whole incident with the what we thought was a noose in the garage, which later turned out to be the way that they tied the pull ropes to be able to pull the garage doors down. First, they thought it was a practical joke. Then they realized, no, just about all of them are tied that way because it's the way they pull it down. Now, NASCAR did go back in all the garages. They changed how that rope system was. It's fine. Don't care. A lot of people are like, some people are just too goddamn sensitive. I honestly, I don't care. You know, people will look at me and says, I don't understand this, how you could like this because this. I don't give a shit. You know, I care about cars on the track. Guys racing, great racing. You could have purple people driving cars, race cars. I don't care. I want to see exciting racing. And yesterday was exciting racing. So far, with the exception of 2 races this year, most of the racing's been pretty goddamn exciting. And you know what? Bubba Wallace been up in the front. Now, is Bubba Wallace the only African-American race car driver? No. There's a multitude of African-American race car drivers all through the United States and in Europe, in the Middle East, Australia, trying to pick out the places that are known for racing. Rally racing, stuff like that. You know, so there, trust me when I say this. Is there still some old racist from the older eras still running around? I'm sure there is. Is it systematic? No. They like to tell you it is. They like to tell you that, oh, everything's, it's all the racism's systematic. It's system-wide. No, it's not. That's bullshit. And it's dumb shit like this tweet. That way, dumbass. It's dumb shit like this tweet is the reason why we have the problems in this country. Where I don't think we necessarily need to be teaching critical race theory. I think we should be teaching critical thinking. That's the critical we're missing. How to take some information here and there and be able to still be able to, you know, to take little bits of information to be able to piece together the story. That's called critical thinking. We don't teach that anymore. But instead we teach everybody how to be victims. Okay? That's what we teach. And that's what they want to keep teaching. Sorry, folks. I'm getting some notification on something. Okay. Anyway, so, I mean, it's... And that's the problem we're having. Like I said, again, dumb crap like that. Like this tweet. Should students learn why he wasn't allowed to play? Who didn't get taught anything about segregation in the United States of America? Who didn't get taught about anything to do with slavery in the United States of America? Who didn't get taught anything about the era of the 1930s, from the Civil War all the way until we ended segregation? What school, if you didn't have that, what school did you go to? Because there's a problem. Because I got taught all this shit. They keep talking about how it's not taught in school. Well, Woodbridge High School in Bridgeville, Delaware, taught us about slavery, taught us about the Civil War, taught us about segregation and racism, taught us about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and how and the civil rights movement and how segregation was ended, how slavery was, or how racism was still a systematic issue through the 80s. I got taught all this. When they say schools don't teach this, what schools are you going to? Because it was part of our standard lessons. I had a much better understanding of things with friends of mine, and were able to have more conversations with friends of mine because of the education I received. I don't know who was teaching this crap. Who's not teaching? We don't teach that. Who? No, we're not teaching people to be victims. That's what they're not teaching. They're not teaching people, you need to blame every white person in America for all your problems. Because that's not true. It's shit like this that backs that claim up that everybody's a victim. You're only a victim because you let yourself be one. When it comes to shit like this. Now, when it comes to things that are done to you physically and mentally, that's totally different, and that's not what we're discussing today. But I know my shit will get taken out of context. It usually does. Hell, I got banned from an organization because my shit was taken out of context. Okay? So I expect it. But the thing is, you're taught, they're teaching you to be a victim. And if you decide that they're right, then that means you chose to be one. You don't have to be a victim. You can be strong. You can use critical thinking and not be a victim. This is one of the things I always tell people, and they sit there and say, well, white people are the reason why, black families fail. Really? Explain to me why, even during the segregation area, that the black middle class outpaced the white middle class 2-1. Somebody will explain that number to me? Or explain that? How's that white people's fault? I mean, if that's white people's fault, then white people were making the black middle class succeed. But we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. That's a part of history they skip in critical race theory, by the way. They don't discuss that. They blame people for not teaching everything, but they themselves leave out parts to teach where there was black successes. They leave that part out. They only teach you about all the horrificness. It's just like the Native American issue. Oh, well, white people destroyed Native Americans. Really? What were the Native Americans doing before the white man came along? The same shit the white man did, only the white man came along with better equipment. Really? Go look up history. Look at the tribes. Look at how these tribes, how some of these tribes slaughtered entire groups, entire tribes and villages off the face of the earth. And then you sit there and say that the white man is the reason why you are, that is your problem? No, it's because you were taught, that's who to blame it for, because of all the times that you were able to conquer other tribes, then suddenly the white man comes along and beats you. Now it's his problem. I've been victimized more than once in my life. Chances are most people have, but I've chose to be a thriver. Can't keep me down. I am what I want to be. See, understand that they don't want to teach you about how several different nations that were called tribes did the things that the white man did before the white man came. They only want to teach what happened when the white man came. They want to make it sound like everybody was all in peace and everything was hunky-dory. It wasn't. That's a lie. That's the difference between this critical race theory versus reality. You want reality, then go read it. Go search it. It's there. It exists. But we don't teach critical thinking. That's the problem. Okay? That's where we are failing, is critical thinking, because critical thinking will help you in math. It will help you in science. It will help you in history. It will help you in reading and writing. Critical theory is thinking is a cornerstone of education, and we're not teaching it. And that's why the United States is slowly failing in education in the world, because we stopped telling kids to figure it out and we started trying to lay it all out for them. And that's where we've gotten the people we've gotten today that want everything laid out for them. They want it all. It's like when you have an argument with somebody on social media, cite your source, cite your source. Why? Just go research it and prove that I'm wrong. That's what you should do. You should sit there and go, no, I'm not going to give you my source. I want you to go look it up and prove that I'm wrong. But the problem is you have you have 12 million sites out there that backs up the same talking points that both sides have in unison and circle, and you never get anywhere. And that's all people do. What they do is they use the internet to only back up their own beliefs instead of using the internet to look at every side of it and come with an actual thought and a degree of, this is where I'm at on this matter. That's called critical thinking. Nope, most of the people on social media just sit there and wait for somebody to tell them what the talking points of the day are, tell them what to think, tell them what they say. That's why I have tell them what they hate. That's why I have the Stop Fake Hate shirts. They tell them everything. These people are being led like sheep. They're being taught like sheep. They're being fed. They're being shepherded around. The worst part about it is everybody talks about how Jesus Christ was a shepherd. Carpenter, shepherd. Guess what? Some people learned, and now they're better at it than he was. Only problem is they're sending the wrong goddamn message. I just, it irritates me to no end. The shit that I see that people are sending out there and nobody thinking for themselves. Zion Bryn says, I think any society is not guilty of, let alone not capable of, shitty behavior to other societies is a fantasy. Humans will fight for what they need. Only in this age do we fight with more civil means. Here's the other thing. Here's another piece of nice little information, a nice history lesson for you. A wise indigenous person once said, "It is your land until it's not your land." Okay? There you go. Oh, I think my Facebook feed has been taken down. No, it's still up. Okay. I thought for a minute they took me down because I was saying some shit that people didn't like. Sorry, reality sucks. It's not all, goody and rainbows and white puffy clouds and sunshine and all that. Reality sucks sometimes. It is it is harsh stuff. But it is what it is. And you don't have to have it harsh. You don't have to. You can learn from it. Learn not to repeat from it. Here's another little piece of history probably nobody's talking about. I told you before, we're in World War III. We're in World War III. Go back and look at some of the monarchies of the 14 and 1500s. Okay? Like Russia is a country that we hate. And they're fighting against another country, and so we're supporting the other country because we know we can't get in direct, on-the-ground confrontation with them because it could come to the conclusion of the world that life as we know it would be over. In the 14 and 1500s, this is what happens when you don't study history. Kingdoms were doing the very thing because it looked bad if they went again and warred with other kingdoms when they were in contested monarchies. So what they would do is send support to a country that a kingdom they hated that they were trying to conquer. They would send support and fight them. It's called fighting by proxy. We are fighting World War III by proxy right now. We are repeating the same, and it still didn't end well. Eventually, both of those major kingdoms ended up in a ground battle against each other. History repeating itself because we haven't learned. Excuse me. And that's what it is, folks. But critical thinking got me to that because it's like, I've studied a lot of things in history, and I wonder why this all sounds so familiar. Went back, started researching it. Sure enough, there it was. I'm at least lucky enough that I was taught critical thinking in high school. Like I said, I had two amazing history teachers. Two amazing history teachers. Joseph Matrosino and Sam Wiley. Amazing history teachers. Okay. They taught me how to think for myself, how to take the information and put it together. Everybody needs to start doing that. You want to, for those of you out there listening to the show that thinks I'm full of crap and thinks I'm just some speaker for one side or the other, I challenge you to use critical thinking. Look at both sides of the argument and actually piece the things together. You'll find the truth in the middle between the two. You really will. And then you find yourself like me as an independent. You'll find the truth in the middle of the two arguments. Two people arguing. Both of them have bullshit in their story. But both of them also have truth in their story. And you'll find the truth. You just got to be willing to read both of them and think about it for yourself. Not look at talking points and other people's opinions. Oh, because he gets 1 billion followers or likes on his tweets, that guy's telling the truth. No, he's not. I don't tell you to believe every damn thing I say either. I don't. I just tell you what's out there and I give you my opinion on it, but I want you to think about it. Maybe I said something to make you think a little bit differently about it, and maybe you'll start drawing your own conclusions on it. That's called critical thinking. And by the way, folks, you're welcome for that. Both sides are lies with an agenda they want you to follow. Think for yourself and follow your own agenda. Don't be someone's pawn. You're right. I couldn't have said it any better than you just did, and because of that, I'm ending the show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this show has come to an end. I know, it's a sad day. That's all right, the show will be back on tomorrow. Do remember, programming note. The show will not be happening next week. There will not be a show the entirety of next week. Why? On Friday, I'm getting dental surgery done. Every one of the teeth that I have in my mouth is being ripped out. I'm having implants put in, and it's probably going to take me the better half of a week to be able to have a conversation. Not to mention the fact being used to the condition my teeth are in changes how I speak. So now that I will be getting that done, it's going to change the way that I speak, which means I will need to practice on it so I don't sound like a blubbering, slurring idiot, which is how I sound when I'm at a campfire. So I've got to work on that. So folks, understand that I've got some work to do, and so Thursday night after my show, there will not be one for an entirety of a week. Okay, so just understand that, and I'm going to repeat this every day this week so everybody knows. So, but anyway, folks, that's the end of the show. Why is it the end of the show? Because the show has to end. It's like death and taxes; they're inevitable. Well, the show coming to an end, it's inevitable. I can sit here all night and talk to you guys. But sometimes when I've done some of my old 3-hour shows, people literally fell asleep listening to the show. I don't want that. So you guys have yourselves a wonderful night. For everybody here at the world-famous Rich Wilson Studios, I'm Rich Wilson. Thank you, Dave, for everything again. Dave's looking forward to vacation, let me tell you. Every time I say there's no show for a whole week, Dave's got a smile on his face. Anyway, guys, you guys have yourselves a wonderful night. Once again, don't do anything I wouldn't do, which doesn't leave you much room for error. Just remember, if it puts a smile on your face and it didn't hurt somebody, then God damn it, enjoy it. That's what life is about. It's short. Enjoy it. That's what we're supposed to do. I think the ultimate sin is actually not enjoying life. For everybody here, we'll see you later. Good night.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points